And scenes of crime officers find a potentially lethal airgun in one of Shay's bedroom drawers.
On the right side of the bed, she had a coffin-style bookcase, which had all the gang killings and gangland people and so forth.
It was very dark and twisted, I suppose.
Elsewhere in the house, even coffee cups reveal this morbid fascination.
Shay Groves was someone who was obsessed almost with true crime documentaries. She had a fascination with serial killers, killing.
We've noticed from looking at previous social media pictures that over the last couple of years, her appearance started to change. She went from wearing sort of bright clothes and being sort of quite outgoing to started going in on herself and becoming almost gothy. Dark clothing, lots of dark makeup. She started to have tattoos, very visible tattoos. So visible you can see them on her face and on her neck. So there's obviously something going on in the background there that's making her change her appearance like that.
She became a god, as we understood it, as a result of her becoming friendly with a partner who was her boyfriend around that stage. They were both gods. They had a weird sense of humor, in a sense that they were dressing up in god clothes and all that. They also were practicing pagan practices, and she had a Celtic dagger with her, which was supposed to be for pagan practices.
Back at the crime scene, police uncover more disturbing evidence.
Also within Shay's home were a number of CCTV cameras. Now, ordinarily, a CCTV camera would be facing the outside and it will be there as a crime prevention type of mechanism to stop intruders breaking into your house. But what was particularly strange about this case is that Shay actually had them set up inside the house.
Shay had CCTV video cameras in her bedroom, in the lounge, in the kitchen. The ones in the bedroom were used to record her and Frankie having sex. They would then watch these videos back and then carry out what they had seen.
The police recovered a number of videos.
There were CCTV footage of them committing violent sexual acts together. It involved sexual acts of what's known as BDSM, bondage, dominance, submission, and masochism.
What we established that was common between the two of them was that they had this almost unhealthy sexual interest, and it's unusual to try and find a partner that has the same sort of sexual preference as you. So the fact that these two had this thing in common made it quite unique, but also extremely dangerous.
Miss Groves had a passion for kinky sex, to the extent that she likes knives being used on her, knives being run over her, and so forth.
One of the elements of there was a thing called knife play. Now, this is where they would act out a sexual act where one of them is in possession of a knife and holding it to the other's throat whilst they have sexual intercourse.
The footage reveals these dangerous sexual games are fueled by Class A drugs.
Frankie and her very quickly got into the habit of cocaine. And cocaine became the center point of the relationships, whereby they were sniffing cocaine and having sex and videoing their sexual acts. They were exploring their sexual acts to the very limit with the use of cocaine and other things.
Shay and Frankie's mutual interest in rough sex and BDSM dominated the relationship. The boundaries became somewhat blurred, I think, with what they were doing. So there'd be a lot of role-playing. Shay would be someone who enjoyed being spoken down to and humiliated. Frankie would regularly spank her and talk to her in a derogatory fashion. And this was something that consumed the relationship and was the cornerstone of the relationship.
They signed what's known as a sexual contract. I called it the 50 Shades of Grey sexual contract because it resembled everything of it. In it, It gave Frankie the permission to wake up Shay Groves every morning with sex. It was signed by Frankie Fitzgerald, signed by Miss Groves, and countersigned by the friend.
One of the videos that the police recovered from the address was of a particularly brutal sexual act between the two parties, and that is really, really disturbing. With a knife, one doesn't have to describe any further how high risk that is, particularly when one of the parties or both of the parties may be high on cocaine or alcohol.
As detectives trawl on through Shay's sordid CCTV footage, they're drawn to something rather sinister. Her lethal Celtic dagger appears in the unlikeliest of places.
There were evidence that we found from CCTV footages where she actually puts the knife underneath her bed, underneath a pillow. On one occasion, after sex, Frankie Fitzgerald actually saw the knife and says, "Why do you have it? Do you intend to stab me in the throat?" And what is the coincidence of Frankie Fitzgerald saying, "I'm going to stab you in the throat," and Frankie Fitzgerald being actually stabbed in the throat later on within a few weeks?
Police have no option but to make an arrest.
What's going on?
Sorry,
No, don't close the door.
They turned up and Shay Groves was there in her pink dressing gown, smoking a cigarette, acting as cool as you like.
This was an unusual reaction. When she was talking to the police officers, she was as if nothing was wrong.
It didn't appear surprising that the police were there. It's almost as if she knew they were coming.
Shay Groves told them that there was a body upstairs.
Absolutely no tears, nothing, no concern for him, anything of that nature. It was a chilling video, a chilling body-worn camera to actually watch.
Arrest on suspicion of murder. You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioned something which you later rely on in court. Anything you do say may be given evidence. The necessity for your arrest is for a prompt and effective investigation. Okay.
But when the officers arrested her on suspicion of murder, she didn't put up a fight. She then directed the officers to say where the weapon was. And sure enough, there was this Celtic dagger still in the sink with blood on it.
Lee Park, Havant. 25-year-old Frankie Fitzgerald has been found dead with his throat slit in the bedroom of 27-year-old Shay Groves.
Mum is heartbroken. We haven't just lost Frankie, we've lost our mum too. She'll never be the same person ever again. He was very special. He was special to everyone. And it's just a void that's going to be in the rest of our life. Our hearts are going to be broken for the rest of our life.
Arrest on suspicion of murder. You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention...
Mum of one, Shay, has been arrested on suspicion of murder.
After she was arrested, she was taken to the police station, and at the police station, she was seen by a registered nurse.
Shay was then subjected to a number of police interviews during the course of her time in custody.
She slowly went on to have legal advice. And during the course of the first interview, on the advice of a solicitor, she made no comment.
In the meantime, detectives have been questioning one of Shay's friends. In a bombshell interview, the friend reveals a strange video call she had from Shay straight after the killing.
You then have this bizarre situation where Shay's starting to giggle and saying, "Can you keep a secret? I've done something, can you keep a secret?" And she proceeds to walk upstairs, still on FaceTime with her friend, and then turns the camera to show her Frankie's lifeless body on the floor with clear stab wounds around the neck, and says words to the effect of, "I've done him, I've done him." She's always described as having a bit of a weird sense of humour. So initially she's thinking, is this one of these pranks that Shay might pull? You know, is this just some sort of weird thing that she's just trying to pretend that they've had some kind of game and Frankie's pretending to be dead? So she doesn't quite believe her, and you can see why. But Shay then gets the camera phone and actually puts it really close to Frankie's body, so she can really see the graphic images of the injuries that she's caused towards Frankie.
She was showing the blood spots on the books themselves and says, blood here, blood there, blood here. That's what the police officers found. What they also found when the first police officer went up to the room, apart from finding the body, they had this pungent smell of bleach, where there was an attempt to clean up the place, because the friend was telling the police officers when she was being video interviewed that she actually saw her with a bowl with water trying to clean the place. She had taken the camera towards the kitchen area, towards the sink, and shown her the knife where she used the murder weapon.
In the same video call, the friend claims Shay also admitted to stabbing Frankie while he slept. Detectives put this to Shay during her interview.
And so they were putting questions to Shay that effectively she had murdered Frankie in his sleep.
Her attitude during the second and third interview completely changed because she was so arrogant. And she was using words like, look, don't waste my time. I'm paraphrasing it. Don't waste my time. I know what I'm here for.
Strangely, she started talking, and actually one of the questions she then fired back at the police officers was, well, if I killed him in his sleep, why is there no blood on the bed? As we know, Shay was obsessed with true crime documentaries. She would be aware of forensic evidence and how to dispose of forensic evidence. Now, what we do know is that Frankie's body had been moved and been wrapped up in a duvet. So I think the inference there is that it's likely that if Frankie was sleeping, he was sleeping on top of the duvet and he was stabbed, and she's then wrapped him in the duvet and then transported him from the bed to the floor on top of the bin liners. She's forensically aware because of her knowledge of all these true crime documentaries that she watches. She knows that by wrapping the body in bin liners, it's less likely to leak fluid into the house.
Shay effectively leaves no trace of Frankie's blood on the bed.
What is even more interesting about her demeanor was the fact that she's told the police officers, you will find things about us in the video. She says she had been suffering from the months of sexual abuse that she'd been suffering from Frankie Fitzgerald. The abuse in a sense that it was violent sex. She was raped by him. She didn't consent to rape.
Shay started to hint that she may have been a victim of sexual violence from Frankie, and that this attack was due to her defending herself.
Shay was now trying to form a defence, and that defence was self-defence. So in effect, what she is saying is that she was being attacked by Frankie, and in order to protect herself, she had to inflict harm on him to stop him harming her.
What happened was that he went towards her and grabbed her in the bed and strangled her, and she was losing consciousness. She then struggled to find something to hit him with, and she thought she found a box, and she was trying to hit him with the box. Turned out it was a knife, and she stabbed him. It was sheer arrogance, something that you don't normally find when someone is saying, I've been a victim of abuse, I've been a victim of coercive control, and I killed somebody. Not a shred of emotion.
Whilst looking into Shay's abuse claims, detectives dig deeper into the background of their suspect. Although she paints herself as the victim, the truth isn't quite what it seems.
We established that Shay would often carry a knife, and she would self-harm on occasions, small cuts in her legs and that kind of stuff. But also she would threaten violence against others, and there are a number of occasions that are reported whereby Shay had used violence against other people, or at least threatened violence against other people. And the fact that she secretly carried a knife with her wherever she went is a real concern.
Friends reveal Shay called her housemate Chucky after the knife-wielding killer doll in the horror film Child's Play, and more sinister details are revealed to the police.
It was a strange relationship. Shea had a lot of emotional control and influence over her. Her friend was subservient and would do whatever she wanted. She'd run errands, even put on Shea's socks for her.
She would effectively use her as a house mistress to look after the house, clean up, and on one occasion, I believe she was made to tie Shea's shoelaces for her. You know, that is strange behaviour.
And what Shea Groves did was that she treated her as a slave. Slave in every sense of the word, where she screamed at her, she got her to do her washing, ironing, cleaning, feeding her child, go out and buy food. The dynamics was in such a stage where she was effectively controlling her.
On a couple of occasions, Shea turned violent towards her as well.
On one occasion, she pulled her around the hair and dragged her throughout the house because the friend had gone out and had not told her where she was. On a second occasion, what she did was that she picked up a nail clip and hit her on the head that caused her to bleed. Her friend saying she can blow hot and cold, she can be violent at 1 minute, and within seconds she can turn out to be a normal person.
The police identified controlling behaviour, but they also identified manipulative behaviour. And it transpired that Shea had told a number of people, including Frankie, that she was suffering from cancer and that she was undergoing treatment. And it just didn't exist. It was completely fictitious.
And that is the most vile thing that anybody can think about. And she's manipulating all this and trying to get sympathy, money, and all these kind of things on the pretext of cancer. It is a heinous act.
But according to her acquaintances, Shea's deceit didn't stop there.
One of the chilling and telling features about Miss Groves' personality was her ability to use these sexual footages that she had taken of her having sex with Frankie Fitzgerald, her ex-partner, to manipulate them and to blackmail them to do things. She actually manipulated Frankie Fitzgerald by saying she's going to publish this to the newspapers. There's one occasion where there is the CCTV footage that the police found, and she actually said, if I show this to the police, they will think that you are abusing me.
Shea made threats to post them on social media due to her jealousy and problems in the relationship with Frankie, and wanted to ruin his life.
Shea even sent the sex video to her friends.
It was showing a very violent sexual act taking place without the consent of the other party. So in effect, Shea was being raped by Frankie, and that just wasn't the case. The police were able to get the original footage of this video, and when they analysed it, it was clear that the footage had been edited by Shea.
It was consensual sexual acts, and what she had done is that she had manipulated a number of footages by cutting and pasting them out of time and sending them off to their friends, saying this is how he's been aggressive towards me.
Soon, detectives uncover a chat between Shea and a friend, accidentally picked up on her CCTV. In it, Shea discusses ways to cause Frankie serious damage.
Having received this information that Shea is getting to a point where she wants to either cause Frankie harm directly or get somebody else to cause harm towards Frankie, that really does start to rub against a defence of self-defence that she is starting to show. It's starting to now show a pattern of perhaps this is pre-planned. Shea Groves is charged with Frankie Fitzgerald's murder, and a trial date is set at Winchester Crown Court. She attends court. The charges are put towards her, and the defence claim that their client, Shea, is going to be pleading self-defence and also diminished responsibility. And so the prosecution now have to disprove that this was not a case of self-defence or a momentarily loss of control, that this was actually cold-blooded, pre-planned murder.
6 months after the killing of Frankie Fitzgerald in Lee Park, Havant, his girlfriend Shay Groves finally faces justice at Winchester Crown Court. The atmosphere is fever pitch.
There's a lot of public interest in the case, a lot of media there. This is obviously a big story, a national story. A woman who was interested in serial killers, gangsters, true crime. So this was an unusual case and had a lot of interest as a result.
Shay's plea remains not guilty.
And the defense was self-defense as a starting point, and if she was successful, it would have led to a full acquittal, so she would have walked out not guilty verdict. The two defenses that reduces murder to manslaughter are loss of control and diminished responsibility. So she would still be sentenced, but the sentence would not be as high as a sentence for murder, which is a minimum term of life.
With the stakes so high, Frankie's sister Carla is also at the trial.
It was horrible, and obviously just straight after Christmas, obviously the first Christmas without Frank. So yeah, it was really difficult. I had like an anxiety attack. I had to go outside. It was a bit much for me. I couldn't really deal with it. I was really nervous. Obviously, I've never been to a court even, or even a murder trial.
The prosecution needs to prove that Shay killed Frankie in cold-blooded murder.
In the bedroom, unusually a few weeks before the killing itself, the cameras have been taken down. So we had to rely on telephone evidence, WhatsApp messages, conversations, a camera that was in the kitchen, the housemaid's bedroom, noises in the background. And this, the police officers and we as a prosecution team sat down together and worked together to produce a timeline from the time Frankie Fitzgerald came into the house.
Using this patchwork of evidence, the court relives the last 24 hours of Frankie's life.
So on Saturday, the 16th of July, 2022, we know that Frankie goes to Botley Drive to visit Shay. They're taking cocaine, they've taken alcohol. Again, it's just building up to be this real pressure cooker environment.
I see the CCTV, and her and Frankie were in the kitchen playing music and talking, and obviously the songs that he played were the songs he played with me, so that really hurt that they were the last songs he would ever hear. So yeah, that was really heartbreaking.
At about 3 o'clock in the morning on Sunday the 17th of July, Frankie and Shay are both still having arguments about ex-partners.
And obviously we heard her call him up to his own death.
She calls Frankie to come to bed. He goes upstairs and falls asleep. While Shay's going through Frankie's phone, she uncovers a message where a female purporting to be 13 years of age has been contacting Frankie through social media. Now, Shay clearly loses it as a result of seeing that message and gets extremely jealous. But what she didn't know was that Frankie had actually blocked that individual because of the age. And what she also didn't realise was this girl was in fact 17. But that was the final straw that broke the camel's back.
And within a few minutes later, there was the scream.
And she stabs him in the neck.
And then afterwards, she then delivered another 19 blows to his heart and chest area, all of which would have been fatal in themselves.
In a fit of rage, it was a brutal action by the defendant. And the friend said that she had sent a message to her at 5 o'clock in the morning saying that Frankie had left her and there was a big fight. Words to the effect like, he's gone, he's left for the day. The import of the message was that she was setting up a lie.
But then Shay changes tack, video calling her friend to gloat in the killing. and it was Shay's friend who decided to turn her in.
And the moment she called the police, it was the recording that we played to the jury, which had such a chilling effect, explaining what the defendant had told her about the lies she had created to set up an alibi.
Shay had made admissions to her in the FaceTime call saying that he was asleep, and that's when she stabbed him. Shay had made various threats in the past to harm Frankie. If your victim is asleep, how can you feel threatened so much that you have to defend yourself by fatally stabbing somebody? The prosecution were able to show that self-defence just wasn't possible.
Next, it's the turn of Shay Groves herself to take to the stand.
She came across as a very assertive, very controlled, very informative, well-versed with the case. So she was the sort of person who could look after herself, and that portrayed a person who could not have lost control at all.
She came across as rather bolshy and cold and a bit arrogant. She was certainly giving it back to the prosecutor.
When she gave evidence, her reason for why she had told her friend that Frankie was asleep was because she was trying to protect him because of his reputation, children. She didn't want to say anything about him being excessively violent towards her. And now when she walked into the witness box, she was telling the real truth, which we did not accept.
And her version of the truth was that, you know, her and Frankie had been fighting.
She said she had been pinned on the bed, she was struggling to breathe.
She had reached out to get a money box, but accidentally grabbed a dagger and stabbed him in the neck. I mean, it's almost laughable listening to this account.
But the court is stunned by what Shay says next.
When she gave evidence, she actually admitted that she could actually see him gurgling with blood, and she stabbed him to prevent him from gurgling. In a sense, she was doing him a favor by sending him off.
It's quite a strange thing to hear in court, and to hear someone doing that, stabbing someone ferociously when they're dead or dying. It was quite harrowing to hear.
But in dealing with Shay's abuse claims at the hands of Frankie, there are even more harrowing moments for the jury.
There was a sequence of CCTV footages that we had to play to the jury. He was smacking her, and she was saying, "Yes, Daddy, what's my punishment, Daddy?" And he was having sex with her, and then she was crying. It was horrific to look at. One or two jurors actually were in tears when they saw this. But what the prosecution said, what the Crown said, was that this was all consensual.
She didn't really have a defence, to be honest. He was innocent. He didn't deserve to go like this. No one does.
What we told this jury was that this is a manipulative, jealous, cunning woman, and her jealousy led her to killing him. And that is the reason why he died. This is not a case of self-defense.
The jury retires to consider its verdict.
The jury retired for 4 days. To some people, it was the most agonizing 4 days because you didn't know what was going through their mind. When they came in, it was a hushed courtroom. And this is the point where it's like the drum roll moment.
The verdict was guilty. And it was just the best feeling ever.
And at that point, or in the moments afterwards, while Shay was still in the dock, she smiled, which I found something to be a rather strange reaction, considering she was now going to be spending many years behind bars.
My mum just broke down. Obviously, we were happy she got guilty, but never going to bring Frankie back.
Shay Groves is sentenced to life with a minimum term.
She was sentenced to 23 years, which is some sort of justice, but how many years she got, It's not the end for us.
So she'll be 50 years of age by the time she gets out. She's lost that relationship with her daughter. You know, there's a heavy price to pay for that, all because of jealousy.
He might be gone, but he's left the most amazing memories. Love. 2 beautiful children that will always live in him. And I will miss him for the rest of my life.